Hey everybody, Tom Kaczynski of Unscripted here on Free Atlantic Radio this evening. Today's Monday, December 14th, and I'll give people a minute to come in because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to be doing this. I had some things to take care of, but we did get done with them in time, and so here I am to enjoy another evening with you guys, and I just don't feel like dealing with the lights, so I'll sound a little bit like Paul Begley and say I'm just going to go ahead and wear the glasses tonight. It makes life a lot easier, and it makes it a lot less unpleasant for me. So we got a lot of topics to cover this evening, and I'll just start with a basic introduction. I hope everyone who's joining in tonight is having a very good night. An exciting weekend has passed, and a lot of events have been happening today. We'll cover them all and see how they all connect. So get your questions lined up. Sometimes I have an angry rant like I had on Friday. Sometimes I have a deep opening soliloquy. But what I have now really are a lot of disconnected, potentially, or connected events. And so we're just going to jump into some of it, and we'll start with what happened this morning. Some of you were following the major hack where Google was out for a while, YouTube was out for a while, and I guess it comes back to this company, this what's it called? Was it FireEye, I guess is what it's called, and they're involved with some reason I keep remembering this TradeWinds, but that's not right. SolarWind was the name of the group, and it's kind of interesting that they call their software Orion. Apparently this is the backbone for a lot of corporate and government software, and I'm not a computer geek to that level, so I don't pretend to understand all this, but I thought it was pretty interesting that I guess someone found a way through a backdoor and an update, and they know everything. Now the media was going out there saying it's the Russians, which means it wasn't the Russians. So the question is, who was it? Was it the deep state? Was it the Chi-Coms? Was it someone else? I mean, it's really hard to say. But what we have seen is that the same people who back this software are the same people involved with Dominion voting systems, amongst other things. And it's just one more piece of evidence that the election could be a fraud. But then again, many other things could be, like the U.S. Treasury was being, potentially assaulted. And it reminded me of something very odd I remember watching. I was watching this video from the Real News Network with Stephen Yana Panoon, and Yana was going ahead interviewing someone. I wish I could remember who the lady was, but she was going on and on about how she was getting out of the banking system because she saw they were changing the way it works, so that as of December, that it would be considered an act of God if there was a major cyber attack. And here was the vision that she was postulating, and I think it might be relevant for the near future, so keep it in mind. She was saying that if we had a situation where the information on bank accounts were scrambled and people didn't know what money they had because everything's digital now, there's no paper records for a lot of things, we could have a point where, you couldn't have the FDIC return your money because no one would know who had what money. And then what do you do? Because right now, currency is just nominal. The real dollars that you earn, supposedly, for the real labor you put in, definitely end up disappearing in a fit of nothingness. And I think that that's one of the things that's really challenging about this, that we could see something like that happen as a cyber Pearl Harbor. And what better excuse to bring in UBI, the digital dollar, and all these other things? Maybe say you're going to pay on the blockchain, so that'll never happen, but that you go away from paper currency specifically because you had a digital problem. And it's kind of funny how the problem creates its own solution. So something to keep an eye on with whatever this attack was. Is it people trying to probe the grid in some sort of way? I don't know, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Now, another thing that, obviously deserves a lot of watch tonight, some people I've noticed, is that Bill Barr apparently will be leaving as the head of the DOJ as of December 23rd. Not really that surprising, given that yet another director of justice who doesn't investigate anything. But the timing is always curious why things happen now. How many people are talking about executive orders? Of course, the one from 2018 about interference with the election, the report coming from the National Intelligence Director that is supposed to be released by the 18th, and also that we have this new executive order that came out on the 10th, I believe, taking Mark Milley out of the chain of command. So the D.C. shell game continues to be played. President Trump has been very aggressive in fighting against this, even though we now have theoretically the electors who've been selected. But this is where it gets weirder. As of right now, we have seen competing slates of electors sent from the states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, New Mexico, Arizona, and I think Nevada. And if I'm missing one, that would be that's possible. But I think there were at least two different sets of electors, because we have seen these court suits coming back and forth. And, we'll see if anything comes of it. I'm sort of a skeptic, but it's going to be interesting to see how it goes forward. Let's see. Gandalf writes, I'm going to love the knives coming out for Trump. Well, Trump knows the knives are coming from him, and I think he's going to have to respond to it. But at the back of this, I keep thinking that the real story is about the vaccine. And, it's just, we've seen the first rollouts happening today, and I thought it was kind of telling that the president went out there and said, I'm not going to be taking this, but you go ahead. And he's saying, oh, well, I'm going to wait for it. Yeah, I'm going to wait too. I'm going to wait till never. That's when I'm taking this. I don't trust it. It's weird how it's being rolled out, and there's a lot of strangeness happening. So let's talk about some of the strange things I've been hearing. There's been a report circulating. It's kind of crazy. We're going to put on some tinfoil hat here today since I'm wearing the shades. And there's a story that's been circulating on the back corners of the internet. It goes something like this. The earthquake that happened last week in Maine is said to have been a bunker buster bomb, where there was a Chinese emplacement somewhere in rural Maine, and this was dropped on it. At the same time that an F-16 went down, which that actually did happen in rural Michigan, because a lot of talk has been going on about Chi-Coms up in Canada, especially in light of the report put out there by Rebel News, which is Ezra Levant's thing. I think it was a 34-page report, if I remember right, or maybe it was 43, I forget, where they were talking about how there was a lot of work and communication between the Trudeau regime and China. And, that we have seen, for those of us who have looked, and I have, Chinese strategic policy looks at America as a big wheat field they can go ahead and feed the Chinese century. So what's going on with this? Who's enabling it? Who's facilitating it? Especially when you look at the financial arrangements between your sort of world banks and the state of Israel especially, and how China are working together. And you look at America being set up for conflict after conflict, that the media leads people on this path to mindlessness. And it makes me wonder where the story all goes from here. And I guess that's kind of where I'm at tonight, because I do feel like we're just stuck in this weird waiting period. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I don't know exactly when and where it's going to happen, but I do think it's going to be sooner rather than later. And I think it's going to be really curious to see how well this holds together, because the backdrop we don't talk about enough, and it deserves repeating, is the desperation people feel. A lot of people are going to lose where they live at the end of the month. A lot of people who are receiving some form of subsidy are going to lose that at the end of the month. And what are you going to do when you have potentially tens of millions of Americans homeless, hopeless, moneyless? You're going to have the ultimate recipe for total chaos. And I think that's the point of the story, that we've reached a point where our government's more invested in setting us against one another, and that our corporate class wants to see the destruction of our existing society as a sort of renovation by which you can justify something new. I had an opportunity. I was talking to Milt Lamprey, or Lamprey Milt, I should say, who does a very good broadcast. I'll put a link to it for the next show because I don't have it in front of me. But we were talking about the larger macro trends, which I really appreciated. And really, one of the stories that's really important in all this is that elites hate the regular people. They hate having to depend on them. They want to go ahead and have the natural separation they feel is their due. And look, I'm as big a fan of hierarchy as you'll ever meet. But the thing is, you need a hierarchy that has a respecter of all persons. I think that's important. Only God should be able to go ahead and say he's beyond that. But these people feel like they are demigods, and they're trying to set up a society that would function that way. And as you see all these different pieces coming in as they work towards what Klaus Schwab called mixed reality, where you see augmented people and technology working in a matrix against, the existing order, this is something we'll really have to keep an eye on. That I think this is the macro trend that a lot of people are going to be missing. So that is what I am keeping an eye on tonight. Not the deepest look into everything, but frankly, there's just a lot of weird things out there. You hear stories of missile strikes. You see that there's massive military deployments that don't even make sense, except it looks like we're setting up to defend our homeland. And you have to wonder if we're playing coup versus counter coup. The Democrats probably stole the election on the 4th. Can the Republicans steal it back? And does anyone have any belief in a country where the only way you can actually gain control of power is by stealing it from other people? I don't think that's going to hold very well. And I think that the right trigger event could set this whole thing off. And I'm sure that we're primed for it. I just don't know the schedule of it. Maybe it'll happen on the 21st. For those who follow sort of how should I say, the sort of elite occultish circles. You know, you have the conjunction there of Saturn and Jupiter, the Bethlehem stars, it's sometimes said. And even though that could mean something very good, it could also mean something very bad. And the people who look at those sort of things would look at using the power of restriction, which is how you see Saturn as the limitations placed on something, over the power of, you know, something stronger, which is a Jovian look at how, you know, Jupiter plays into this. So this is one of the things that really it just kind of has my mind out there. And like all of you, you know, I've hit F5 as many times as I can in a given day, and I've been trying to figure out where the next piece of the puzzle is. But right now, it's just a question of what piece is going to fall apart, because, I mean, all of it is tearing apart. And the thing is, are there any good choices that come out of this? You know, one thing I'd like to do more of in the future is encourage people how to stand up against this. And you know, I've had an idea for something I'll run by you. It's just in the back of my head, and I call it Crossing Washington. And why do I call it that? On December 25th, the evening of the 25th, I want to say it was 17. Maybe it was 1776, but I don't think that's right. I think it was 1777. I'd have to look it up. But anyways, Washington led the American militia against the sitting mercenaries. They were Hessians, German troops, Landwehr, that were sitting in, I believe it was Princeton, New Jersey, if I remember right, where the battle was. And they went forward and they won a big moral victory, you know, so like our own mini Tet offensive, as terrible as that comparison is. But our effort of crossing Washington has to be different, that we have to go ahead and take a moral position where we say we're not going to go along with this. So what I'm recommending to people is something very, very simple and very powerful. I want you to have a Christmas party. I want you to have a big Christmas party. I want you to violate social distancing. I want you to go ahead and have people open up stores and go out there and spend money and be merry. And you know what? Don't let them take away from you what's worth living, because the biggest problem I see in America is not that we have corrupt politicians. We've always had that, or bankers trying to screw us, but it's the despair that people feel in their hopelessness and helplessness, and the idea that we don't have choice and motive, that we have learned to go along to get along too long and too well. And because of that, we think we don't have options. We can reclaim our lives. And it starts with the holiday. And when they say you're going to give us a ticket or a rest, we're like, no, we're not going. And if they say they're going to charge you for something, say, no, we don't accept it. And you nullify it, and you take away their power. And if you have to take away the power of the entire system in this corruption, then do it. Because I'll tell you the truth. You hear how all these COVID deaths are happening and how terrible it is. We don't have any more deaths this year than we have any other year. We just happen to have like 37 cases of the flu instead of however many tens of thousands. What we are doing is seeing a magic trick that works only because people trust authority too much and are willing to submit. And the question is, do you want to submit, or do you want to go ahead and stand for something you believe in? Now, we're looking for nonviolent ways to build resistance to what's happening out there. And I think crossing Washington and telling them exactly where they can stick it is a big step forward that's been long overdue. And it's something that happens in your community. It happens, you know, you look at that bar down in, what was it, in New York, you know, in Staten Island. Or you look at that outdoor restaurant who was just embarrassed. They put a stand outside of there, and they were allowed to be open because they were mobile, even though she couldn't have her brick and mortar business open. And we're going along with this, especially in California. It's terrible. Gavin Newsom goes out there and has parties with his friends, and no one cares. And we're letting it happen because we adhere to laws they don't. So here's what I submitted. It's a humble thing. If they don't follow them, we don't follow them. And even if they do follow them, if they don't make sense, we don't need to follow them. And this is where we need to get our mindset to. The idea that we are sovereign citizens and that we are no longer going to accept these things. And not that we're looking for a fight, but we're not going to let you terrorize us. We're not going to let you use mercenaries against us, because literally, if you are imprisoning people for wanting to eat a meal or enjoy a holiday with your friends, you're not a law enforcement officer. You're not a police officer. You're a tyrant with a badge, and we don't need that. And I know there's a lot of police who are put in hard spots, and you know what? You're going to face your Tiananmen Square moment soon enough. Are you going to take the tank and run over the protester? Are you going to do things the Chinese way? Or are you going to be decent like Americans should be? Because these are the choices we are being forced into. So that is my little opening soliloquy of what I think is happening out there, and hopefully a little bit of an inspiration to some of you. I don't know what questions you have tonight. Hopefully you have have some because I'm not super heavily, I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I just know that, I've been sitting back and I've been looking and I've been thinking and I've been contemplating and praying and just trying to figure out what the answer is. And I know we've reached this spot in the story where we have hard choices in front of us, and the idea that inaction is viable only leads to worse choices in the future. And I think we're on a short time frame. I think something has to radically change within the next month or two, or we're just going to watch lockdowns continue, the vaccine agenda move forward, and that will be used as the mandate, much like they're saying in Israel, where you get to be a first-class citizen if you adhere to the techno-medical tyranny, or you can go ahead and be locked out of life and turned into a modern-day leper. And I just don't have any interest in doing that. I don't have any interest in succumbing to that. And I know that the truth is that people will turn on you very quickly, and that we need to be proactive about how we approach these questions. So that's where my mindset is tonight. In terms of what I'm looking at and what I'm concerned about. I've been looking at some other news, trying to figure out, what threats are real and which ones aren't. And just like any other information war, it's fog of war. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of pieces moving on the board. People are pre-positioning. But to what end, we don't really know. I do think a war is in the footing, whether it's the Civil War, whether it's a world war. I can't say with absolute certainty, maybe all of those things, because ultimately you need a reset. You need a new currency, because that's what the Great Reset calls for. And we'll have to keep an eye on how all that goes together. So those are my thoughts for this evening. And if you guys have any questions, throw them on up there. Make my life easier. Hit like. That'd be appreciated. And I'm actually pretty mellow tonight. I mean, compared to how I was hot on Friday, when I was done with that show, I mean, I was so mad. I was sitting there pacing in the room for at least another 20 minutes afterwards at the idea of how uninvested the legal system is in the welfare of the people. Because I actually care. Like, this is all right. So you guys like when I rant? I'll do a little rant because I'm going to get the show to a half hour, but it'll be much more interesting if you guys ask questions. But that's okay. I'll do what I have to do. There's so many people who are personalities in this business who go out there and they don't really have goals they want to accomplish. People make fun of me because I got New Albion and I got the idea of a free Atlantic nation, and I go out there and I speak this as well as I can, the message of the Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ. But I mean, I'm actually believing in something. Like, I don't come out here because I really want to be a media personality. I don't come here because it's just my job to inform you what things are happening. That was never my goal. I started doing that with coronavirus because I thought I could save some lives. And I think I did save some lives, to be honest with you, because the preparations that people made will serve them well in the challenges of the days ahead. However, even if I wasn't right about what ended up being, that I was following the evidence and trying to protect people. And that's what you have to do. If you're going to have a kingly mindset, you have to go out there and you have to say, hey, these are my people. These are our people. And we are going to stand up for them. And so many of the people who know things, they're just like, no, I just want to be a media person. I just want to be a commentator. I just want to be popular. I just want to be fun. I don't give a damn about popularity. I really don't. If I'm telling you the truth, that's what I care about. And if people hate me, good. Fine. It doesn't really matter. The Lord was hated in his time, and I don't have a problem with being hated. And I don't have a problem. I only have a problem when I'm wrong, and because I'm not putting the effort in and the logic to know things. And I tell people things because some people find some value in some of the things I say, and that it gives them an opportunity to maybe get ahead of the game a little bit. And that's what I want for each and every one of you, to survive, to thrive, to land in a better place. And ultimately, one day it'll happen. And I really believe this, where you just won't see me on media anymore, because that's not what I'm really about. I do this because it's a way to keep attached and to talk to people. And, I really almost prefer talking in our Telegram group, t.me/Atlantic Homeland, rather than ranting into a camera for somewhere between 30 to 60 minutes. But the reason that, I do it is because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of where our society's going. I'm sick that our civilization has been on a downhill cycle for, in my opinion, a few hundred years, and that people don't even care about wisdom, and people say, why do you talk about these abstract subjects? I just want to get to the news. I talk about it because that's how we actually live. And those are the questions that I care about too. And just figuring out a way to bring people together, because I know there's some of us who are smart and who would see this, and if we could just organize something, it would be really remarkable, and it's something that's needed. And who knows? I mean, if I have to come up with solutions on my own, no one's going to like them, least of all me. But, got to do something. Because I'm so sick of people saying things aren't their responsibility. People say, well, it's not my problem. I didn't cause the problem. No, but you're going to have to live it. Your kids are going to have to live it. Your friends, your family, your parents, whomever you think of. And it's just like this malaise is just, it's viscous, right? It's just, it's spreading everywhere, and you see it. There's like this just learned hopelessness that you're like, well, I can't break this. I mean, be rebellious. And I said in the one show, it's generational, right? Because like a lot of people who are of the I'm an Xer. So the people in the generation older than me wanted to say, hey, we were the good social justice people who got this started. And the millennials just craved attention, said, hey, we're okay with this. And then even the Zoomers are so nihilistic in so many ways, because like they'll be out there, be like, well, none of it's going to change anyway. I mean, a little bit of rebellious spirit. When you have to have Xers, come forward like myself. I mean, Lord knows we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. That's why I look like friggin' ZZ Top at this point. I mean, it's just, it's not, but there's something precious that's being lost, and something really important that needs to be reclaimed. And we need to work on it together, and we need to be much more aggressive about it. And if I'm trying to be more vocal, and I try to use the news as a platform to get ideas out there, but how many people can I reach? If I'm lucky, I reach 500, maybe if I told a story that was a little more appealing, I reach 1,000, but if I reach more people, Google would just shut it down. And we get to a point where I guess we're going to need to be men of action. We'll have to live the vita activa as opposed to the vita contemplativa, as they called it in the Middle Ages. And I guess that's a hard thing too, because, if you're someone who's used to living in your head and you have to deal with the ugliness of people and their motives, you realize that it's really hard to make change. And yet courage still can change the world. One person, one man, one woman going out there is the only thing that's ever changed anything. It has to start somewhere, and it starts with you, and it starts with me. So that's kind of where my mindset's at. And, maybe that's a little bit deep for a Monday evening. But right now, I can look at the news. I can see that there are moves and counter moves. I think Trump is playing for a win. I think he's paying for a military coup in the end. I think that's what he's going to require. And we'll see if they have the goods. I mean, if they have the research and evidence we think they have, you should be able to take down half the state. But will the state go down without taking everything with it? And that's one of the questions. It's the old Samson option. The idea that if you take down the one, every other thing will go down around it. And I think that that's a real threat that exists. And that's why a lot of times good people can't take down bad people, because bad people are willing to take down everything. And the sort of inherent, how should I say, arithmetic blackmail of that situation is a very hard part of the political game. And that's why the people sort of have to, if you really want to change things, it has to be that cultural solution where we start doing things differently and pulling ourselves apart from it. So anyway, let's see what y'all are writing. Hopefully you're doing some good things. So let's see. Hunter Wallace says the conservative populist alliance is over. I think that's, well, it's interesting. I think the populists are definitely the ones driving the horse, but I don't think the rhinos even represent the conservative things. I actually think what would happen is the populist leadership has taken away the conservative supporters from the milquetoast moderates. And it'll be interesting to see. The GOP's viability is definitely in question. But then again, you look at all the energy on the far left and who they end up with, Joe Biden. If you can fix an election, you can end up with a Bush or a Biden. It's funny how that works. And I think that's one of the things we have to deal with. Let's see. Son of the Sun says, bro, I want your glasses. Aren't these cool? So I'll tell you a true story. I have a grow tent for different citrus products, and this came with them. So these are polarized lenses you would use for that. So if you want to have glasses like that, these aren't necessarily, just sunglasses, but they're really easy to use. They're really comfortable. I recommend them. I guess maybe VivoSun was the company who built the grow tent, so maybe they would have them available. But if you want to get some glasses, go ahead and do so. And I'm not getting paid for that recommendation, but I'm always happy to tell you what's there. Yeah, no, they do sometimes have it, and the grow tent wasn't cheap, so these are probably pretty decent glasses. And it's so bright in here. Like if I take it off, my eyes are like, oh my god. So yeah, we'll keep them on. So that's good. All right, let's see. Hello from Sacramento. Good to see you, Ryan. Hope all's well out there in the Golden State. Glad to see you. In fact, I might be doing a show with our sometimes listener and friend. I was talking to him, Eki Lux, who comes in here talking some East versus West Coast. You know, my good friend lives out in California, and I try to like meet that sort of mellow jam that they do. You know, remembering the time when 1980s, when there was it was a glory destination where you hung out at Bayside High with Kelly Kapowski. You know, but yeah, the California. I think that California died with Prop 187. To be honest with you, Gray Davis was the death of California as we know it, and now it's become California Norte. You know, not trying to offend anyone, but it was a different time, and I mean, I don't know. I guess that's one of the things, right? I don't want to succumb to like this malaise. I keep using that word. This sort of drifting nostalgia that, you know, it's so easy to fall into. Maybe it's because of just, you know, I just turned 40 and I keep thinking that I'm halfway through my life. And I'm like, I don't really want to just ride out the second half, just trying to enjoy it. I want to actually try to do something before I've reached the point where there's no energy left in the game. And I think that's it. So let's see. You're not sure if you're looking at Tom Kaczynski or Tom Cruise right now. I absolutely, you know, my eyes are wide shut underneath, if you know what I'm saying. So I appreciate the compliment, though. But actually, I'm taller than Tom Cruise, maybe, and pretty brave. I've done some crazy stunts on my own. Been sort of a nutty life. Let's see. Have I had any luck convincing conservatives to stop the steal grift being nothing GOP, MAGA, PEDS paying Trump, Kushner, Deutsche Bank? I haven't tried to convince people. Look, if you're on the cult bandwagon for any leader, the only person who I worship is Jesus Christ. The messianism that exists in certain sectors of the right for Donald Trump is downright dangerous, especially when it comes to things like the vaccine, man. They believe, well, if he says it's okay, it must be. You know, have no faith in any man for that much. I wouldn't want you to have that much faith in me, Lord knows. I mean, it wouldn't be good. I'd want someone to check me if I didn't make sense. And yet, when you uncritically have a cult of personality, what terrible things can result. I understand why he did it. I understand why he does it. I always wonder with Trump, you know, is he just canny? Is he clever? Does he have a game that's deeper? Or is he a useful idiot? I don't know. And we'll find out. But, I mean, we're going to find out how well he played the game now. And we're going to see. You know, something's going to have to happen in the next 5 weeks that one way or another. And I think if he leaves office without contest, we're going to see things get really ugly in terms of what happens to him personally. And I think he understands that. So we'll see how it plays out. But, you know I had heard months ago that the price of Trump staying in office from the deep state was they wanted a big war. They wanted the big war. They wanted the war with China. And you wonder, those pieces are on the table to give it to them because that allows the great reset that they want. And the more destruction they can cause, the happier they are. And they don't really care who are the beneficiaries so long as they come out in control. So we'll see what ends up happening here. Let's see. Can I be honest with you? I am European. I see you're conservatist. I see you're populist. They don't conserve nothing. You need to shift a bit more to the right because libertarians don't amount to much in America as the EU. But I don't see it happening for America. The left is too far gone into individualism. The right leans too much towards Israel. Where are the real Americans? Where are the pre-1940 Americans? I love America, but not the McDonald's America. You know, the problem, it's a great comment, Son of the Sun. And let me expand upon that just a little bit and take it in a direction.
We do not conservative nothing.
Everyone say hi to Dana. She's just stepping in here with.
Are you French, son?
Yeah. We say tu sais français. No hate towards America. So yeah, the thing about America is America has always played this game of sort of being an idea state, right? It's had a problem. He's Dutch. There's been this problem that America, first off, America is a polyglot nation. It's not even a nation. America is an empire that's the foundation of two different nations. The North and the South were two different nations, and you could even argue technically, as Albion Seed did, that there were really four nations. There was New England, the Mid-Atlantic, the Midlands, which was Virginia, and the South, which was, Appalachian, the rural areas, which kind of, the Tidewater was like the Midlands. And anyway, so you have these different cultures that were forged, and eventually it ended up being a fight between New England and Dixie. And most of American politics kind of has been since then. I mean, with other offshoots coming to the fore who represent basically derivations of that. And I think within that, we have tried to force together laws, imperial conquest, and the development of the frontier over the inherent American nations. And that's why I'm an Atlantic separatist. I kind of believe New England has its own vibe. I believe we're compatible with the great Great Lakes and the Mid-Atlantic with the Quebecois and Canada. But we probably I fit more in a New Brunswicker than I do with a Georgian, for instance. And I say that with much love to our friends like Patches who are here from Georgia. It's not against those people. It's a recognition that they are their homelands and that different locations breed different things. You know, the Dutch and the Germans aren't the same people, even though you both emerged out of the old Holy Roman Empire of Charlotte, or I should go back further, out of the Frankish empires of Charlemagne and whatnot. So, I mean, where did those people go, you ask? I think the right made a really bad decision that they sold out morality. They sold the idea that quality should go away and quantity should go in, and they wanted to measure things so they wouldn't have to have ugly fights. Americans try really hard to be agreeable to the point where we make our fights worse in the end. America is a country that smiles in your face until it breaks and stabs you in the back 65 times and then runs you over with a car and puts a special on Lifetime TV. That's why we get into civil wars. That's what we do in this country. We repress ourselves until we express ourselves, and it looks like one of those Purge movies. And the problem is we have a media that in the name of niceness has encouraged us to do that. And we haven't had real conversations and arguments. The right hasn't done so. And even the left doesn't do so. They just go ahead and silence people who are against them. So the answer is to have more communication, but we are seeing the same network, the social networks that have been developed and that ultimately go back to DARPA are being set up to just to make us more angry with one another and shut down voices they don't want to hear. So when you ask where are the Americans, I think America largely is dead. People appropriated for their different concepts and what they want to do. Let me just mute this because I don't want this going off during the show. My apologies for that. But I think that real America's gone, and I think as we look at that, you know, then we have to look at something different. Like if I told you, I could tell you what the Atlantic's about. I say it all the time: reason, nature, grace, and loyalty. You know, and I approach it from a Christian perspective, so you know where I'm coming from, and you know what I'm willing to fight for, and you know I am willing to fight. I've shown that. I've been out there. I've gotten dirty. I've gotten things thrown at me. I've had guns drawn on me. I've had car chases. I've had all these horrible things. I've had people in wigs hide at tables and record me. It's crazy. You know, and I've had hit pieces written at me from anything from New York Times onward. And, you know, who am I? I'm a guy in a cabin. I mean, if I'm the best, if they have to paint me as public enemy number one, I mean, what about the people making billions of dollars, right, who are doing awful things? They don't even question that. It's so corrupt. It's venial. And yet they have to paint, you know, me as a villain. Why? Because I have ideas? I don't know. It's a funny world. It's a world gone mad, you know, and I don't think it's going to get more sane, but I do think that eventually it breaks of its own contradictions and then something good can happen, you know. Then we can go ahead and put technology back in its place and bring culture forward and put family back at the center of it. And of course, all this goes back to the faith. And I want to draw that point, you know, a people that doesn't have a common faith to unite them will never find the common culture of truths they need to be able to work together. And what you believe determines who you are, you know. We imagine our realities based upon what our core beliefs are. And, you know, there's no higher belief than God, and I think that's the center of it all, and everything else comes from that. But that's just my thought, and a lot of other people think that material will somehow make us better people. It doesn't. I mean, all it does is it makes us fight more, and it makes us anguish more, and it invites others to come dispossess us of our own inheritance. And that's what's happened, and our politicians just reflect that. Because, you know, people talk about immigration, for instance, and they talk about how it was an effort to steal the culture, but it only happened and worked because people were greedy and saw it as the benefit. You know, the Romans invite the Gauls in to provide defense because they'd rather be having orgies with Caligula. And that's where we are at this point, you know, one tranny parade at a time. So, you know, it's late imperial ethos. It's Sir John Glubb all over again. And that's where America is. And, you know, the thing that's sad about it is America lost its nationhood when we agreed to be a military empire more explicitly. It started kind of with Lincoln, but it really went on steroids after World War II when we inherited the British Empire, and we picked it up at the decay point of it. So we need to denude ourselves of that and, you know, just focus on what we can do locally. And I really do believe that balkanization is actually a net benefit for that. But people would say, oh, why would you want to break it apart? Because I know people are different in different areas. And I'm someone who's traveled quite a bit. I mean, I've seen this. I mean, and if you've lived in other places, you know that. So that's how I look at it. But let's see what else we have here. I am leaning toward the South Carolina. My ancestors settled there. Yeah, South Carolina has an interesting culture. Charleston, actually, some neighborhoods especially have a really, fascinating sort of feel to it, like a little bit of the old South, just a little bit, like Savannah had, because that was lost. It was kind of sad, really. Let's see. Interesting point about China war, deep state, Great Reset. I've been looking at differently that they wanted Biden. I don't think the deep state cares as much as people assume about whether they get Trump or Biden. Both are useful for accomplishing different ends. I think it's just the tension is actually what's useful. What you need is the belief that there are two sides that actually represent the difference, because it distracts you from the sort of things that they all have in common, which is you have a sort of, corporatist, financier oligarchy that's driven by pure militarism, profit, and transhumanism. And that's just the way it is. Let's see. Europeans see Californians as America and New York, for example. Yeah, sure. They don't understand. I mean, there is real culture in rural America. I mean, it's just different. It's like, that's where I live. So when I come out here, and I used to do my Madam Plaid segment, and you come out dressed like that, I could dress like a real Mainer. I mean, my beard's getting a little aggressive, and I need to trim my mustache a little bit. But it's there are those things, but they're in the quiet places of the world. You know, the Shire was needed to take down Mordor because Rivendell, Gondor, and Rohan couldn't arrange it. It's the same thing into this days. You need people who are small enough to realize what they're actually fighting for, and that, it's just like an atomic bomb. I guess it's a nice fifth-generation warfare concept, right? It just in the same way an atomic bomb is successful because it splits the most fundamental building block of reality in the atom to go ahead and release so much energy. The best way to fight a fifth-generation warfare is to make people go down to their most basic things, faith, family, friends, those sort of level. And when you're fighting for that, you really will find the strength to do that, something that's larger than yourself. And that's what we're going to need here, I think. So we'll see. Terminator Tom, man. When am I going to call upon my brothers in Europe, South Africa, and Australia, man? Well, I tell you what, if things get funny, should I put out a call and say, hey, we're going to do something fun in Maine? You think I'd have a bunch of people show up from Europe and South Africa? I mean, what the Afrikaners have gone for, and the English even, over there has been absolutely disgusting, where they've had to have private security and communities. No one cares because you got black people killing white people, and it's considered okay. And that's the reality of it. Even rich white people, they don't want to mess with their meal ticket. And to be clear, I mean, I do think collective identity is something that does have utility sometimes. But the thing about it that's interesting is that I think the reason why black people and Latinos and other groups express it more is because they're encouraged and they get benefits, and white people get punished. And, it's not everything and it's not nothing. It's something, and we should be able to talk about it intelligently. I think that that's really interesting. But if I invite Afrikaners and Dutch, they will come. Well, I tell you what, son, you send me an email, New Albion at Proton Mail, and we'll talk about it. You give me, I'm telling you, I'll put this as a general thing. You give me 1,000 good men, and I'll give you the homeland. I think I could do it. I think I could do it. I got an idea. I mean, I need men with courage and character, but, and that's what it is. I mean, really, because ideas are bigger, and this is a good land. I mean, we picked the right place. I mean, I had a really depressing conversation. I guess I'll share this with you guys, with someone who I know, who I talk to sometimes. He's a personality. Some of you would know him, but I don't want to expose him. But he's someone whose family, where they live, have had roots for literally 400 years. And because of a couple laws, he's like at the point, I just can't fight it anymore. I'm going to give up. I'm going to leave. I mean, don't let these things be stolen from you. Just because a piece of paper says things, it's paper. Paper burns. That's all it does. Make an airplane, throw it out the window. That's all you got to do. And it's a numbers game. I mean, if there's nothing else you should have learned in this year, it's that, laws don't apply if you have numbers and force behind you. I mean, look at the riots, peaceful protests where you could destroy a whole business and they'll say, thank you, sir. Can I please have another? I mean, that's how we got to play the game at this point. And I really think people need to be aware of that. So that's how I think we need to be thinking now. And I know that's strong and that's aggressive. And I know I'm being a little, bold about this, but now's not a time for cowardice and quiet. I mean, if we do, we'll just be the ones lining up to go and get cattle cars, and I'll be one of the first ones, because you know what? They just don't like my cool sunglasses. And it's really bad. I don't want to be shorn like Aslan and, the line, The Witch in the Wardrobe. So we'll see. I don't know. I am a son of Albion. Well, I tell you what, we could use that, and that's definitely we do. Well, I try, man. I really do try, and I've got some ideas, and it's just things still. I mean, it's going to sound horrible to say, but it's the honest by God truth. Things still have to get worse before they can get better. I really believe that's the case. So let's see. Tim asks, why do I think it's that whites, especially in America, seem to be the least ethnocentric and have the least solidarity of all races and ethnic groups? Two reasons. Number one, well, there's more than two reasons, but the first reason is whites never identified as whites. Whites identified as Englishmen or Frenchmen or Dutch or German or Polish or Russian or Italian or whatever. So that's one thing. You know, black identity, for instance, was sort of polyglot out of the fact that there wasn't strong national entities in most of those places. Or Latino identity was sort of an uplift from tribal identity towards the Castilian classes in those countries. Because if you ever travel in Latin America, you'd know this, that depending on where you are, you know, how much blood of yours is white makes a big difference. Those societies, we call them Latino, but within Latino society outside the United States, they're openly racist based on skin color. You can look at places like Brazil and Uruguay, or, you know, watch a telenovelas and see how people are the lightest. Or even in India, you want an Asian example, the Brahmins were thought of that way. As far as Asia goes, Asian solidarities never really existed. Ask a Chinese man how he feels about a Jap, for instance. You know, the Nihonjin aren't that popular with them, and it goes both ways with the Chinese. So I think that the identity of ethno-nationalism is more tribal, and I think that the fact that rhetorically people game that in the United States to their advantage conceals the fact that those alliances are illusory and political in nature. Now, in terms of what a new alliance would look like, you know, one of the things we were talking about in some of the new Albion books I hinted at was this idea of the kindred, which is that we recognize ourselves as brothers of the West based upon our different backgrounds, you know, that Slavs and Germanic and you know, English and French and Italians and all these people can actually work together, because the more we see how much others are unlike us, it does begin to bridge the gap into what brothers' wars. And that we do have that opportunity. And I think it's a strong and powerful idea that we need to go ahead and move forward and do that. But, I mean, the thing about it is you can positively express pride in yourself about hatred of the other and recognize that, you know, if there's disagreements, then good fences make good neighbors. And I said that, and you know, if you say that, you're treated as the world's most awful racist for saying basically what most of the lauded black and other organizations say they want as their own natural outcome. I'm just saying they can't always have it both ways. And, you know, people say I'm a horrible person for saying that. That's because I actually listen rather than just don't. I can't do double think very well. I'm just not good at that. I mean, I know how it works, but it isn't me. So let's see what we have here. Let's see. Germans united many, but they got punished. Yeah, they did. But you know what? The Germans too. I mean, if they had played nicer with the Ukrainians, for instance, there were things. It's you know, it's not as simple. But now, you know, the history is the history. The time is to do something different. And, you know, for the people who want to stand together, the Atlantic homeland, you know, if you want to look at it from an ethno, you know, graphic perspective, 3 of the 4 whitest states in America are Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. So come home, brothers. You know, we need you. And we really do need, I mean, you know, we need help, and we need to do something, because people here are too accustomed to their comforts. And that's one of the things. I mean, people have learned how to be helpless, and they've learned how to fit into this system. What there?
There's still good in this world. Things we're fighting for. There's still hope. There you go, son of the sun. There's still hope.
Oh, that's nice.
The wife. Hope.
They do need hope.
And I usually go Lord of the Rings when I need hope.
Well, that's what I think of. You know, I think, you know, what I think of is that the Lord stands up for people. You know, no greater love, you know, than one who will die for his fellow man. If I remember right. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, so I'm kind of tired, but it's, you know, we should stand up for one another, and we should stand up for the tribes of our own making. And I've never forgotten that. You know, even when I did my show, they kept asking me, it was kind of funny when I was doing Coronavirus Central, will you disclaim everything you said? It's like, no, I was right. They're like, well, why do you say that? I was like, because it's true. And I mean, people were just stunned, like, but that's not what people think. I'm like, I don't care what people think. If you want to know what everyone else thinks, then what's the point of even having an internet? What's the point of even doing any of this crap? But I'm like, I don't know. But, you know, it's one of those things. So let's see. Let's see what else is out there. Okay, so can you ask your lady to say there's still hope? Oh, she did do that. I keep hearing about these 50,000 Chinese who died in North. Yeah, supposedly they died in Robinson, Maine, which is near Calais on the coast. It would look like Calais for those who actually understand French. But supposedly there were Chinese coming across, and they say there was 50,000. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but maybe they had some pre-planted stuff. You hear a lot of rumors about people forming along the border. I've even heard rumors about Jackman, where I used to be town manager. But I know people on the ground up there, and no one's telling me anything, so who knows? But then again, people there aren't the most attentive either on average, so who knows? But I'm keeping a close eye on it, believe me, up here in Maine. And if I see anything that I think is credible, and my network's not bad up here, obviously,
I'll go. People of Jackman wouldn't even notice if a bomb went off.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Don't you think that's true?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it is. All right. As many women have hope, we should have more hope. Gary says, "Hey, Tom, some dude named N of One has been pestering me because I support you. He posted a long video about you called The Problem with Tom Kaczynski." I mean, it's pretty funny. I'll laugh with that. I know who this person is, and I've talked with him before in person. His problem with me is that he's a doctrinaire libertarian, and he wants to have very aggressive action and be very vocal and vehement. And look, I support passion, and I have no animus against him or anyone else. I think people who have passion is fine. I mean, honestly, there's so many problems in the world. I mean, if I had time, I would not invest myself in saying the with a guy who has a YouTube channel with 2,000 subscribers. But that's been the microcosm problem of libertarianism forever, that they win battles that aren't worth winning. I mean, are there problems with me? Yeah, and I know he's accused me of being a grifter. I'm poor. I've lost money from doing this. So I don't know why, I mean, you can come after me. It's fine. But I go out here and I just present what I see. And look, people make the criticism that I am not ideologically consistent. And my response to that is, thank you, I'm not. I'm a pragmatist who has a little bit of imagination and tries to figure out ways to accomplish ends. That's why I was a successful politician rather than being an armchair ideologue. And that's why I get shut down as often as I do, because it's not because I put out there the most radical solutions, but because unlike 10 other people in these movements, I can actually sit with 5 different people around a table and unite different groups, like we've done in our Atlantic Homeland chat. And he came in there and he was all mad that we weren't ideologically pure. And I was proud of that fact. I have leftists in there. I have people of different ethnic backgrounds. I have people throughout New England talking to one another saying, hey, one thing we all have in common is we don't really want to be part of DC. And I'm pretty proud of that. And it's not like we ask things. None of us are hiding from what we believe. But what we're doing is something more important than the idea of putting out yet another ideological diatribe. What we're doing is building the ability to have connections between people. And I'm proud of that. And if some people don't like that because I am not pure enough for them, that's okay. I've never claimed to be pure. That's why I get to wear the cool sunglasses. It's always that way with the bad boys. But that's why I've been able to go out there and do some things. So that's fine. And look, I wish him well. I wish God's blessing upon him, because I think that he's a very smart, talented person who has a lot to contribute when he decides to put his focus in a better place. You'll note that I spend very, very, very little time attacking people in the media sphere. If I make a comment, it'll just be because I think they're focused on things that are irrelevant for 1 or 2 minutes. You will not see Tom Kaczynski go on there and spend 50 minutes talking about why I don't like X personality, because who honestly gives a damn? You're not here to listen to me tell you my opinions on things, other than if I'm going to take a little joke here or there and say someone's lying to you. I'll say that if I think that. But other than that, the drama's juvenile, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm too damn old, and I'm too damn tired. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. Yeah, well, hopefully that goes forward here. If we can work for our stay and train, I'll tell you what. I will look and see. You and I should have a conversation. Let's leave it at that. All right. Let's see. We have to be naive and look to people about what will be required. I do think, yeah, Francis Marion's a good choice. Some very strong people. What was the name? Dr. Josiah. What was the guy at Bunker Hill? Well, it's going to take a lot of courage. So I agree with you. Let's see. My opinion, the Amish, my ancestors, they don't even need YouTube. Yeah, I mean, I think ideological purity is overrated, and I've said that before. I mean, I get along with people, and that's the thing I can do. Like, for instance, you could take 5 personalities and this has happened before. I don't talk about rooms I sit in because that's why I get invited to them. But I'll sit there and I'll be the guy who can moderate them and be like, okay, you think this, you think that, you think this. Where is the point of convergence? Where is the plan that can emerge? And that's what I did as a town manager. You take 5 disparate personalities, egomaniacs all, and you say, what can we do together? And that's the only way things ever change. I mean, it's humanity's a collaborative sport. It's a game of pandemic, Let's see. All right, let's see what else is out here. Do people agree with me that Biden president will be good metapolitically for seeing this nightmare of an empire end more quickly? Well, I think it depends on whether or not you think that the right wing will grow a set to fight. If you think they will, then yes, it is. I mean, that's the accelerationist argument. You know what I mean? Let's see. If you live alone with Dana on a mountain, you need good neighbors. Well, I tell you what, Dana's the boss around here. We all know that. She's tough, but she's done a lot, and she's shown more courage than a dozen men through all these fights, and I'm proud of the fact she stood with me. So, Mr. Fatface says, good to see you, by the way, and hello to everyone who's here, including those who I haven't seen. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe. A lot of people have been getting kicked off the subscriptions. Dana always tells me to remind you. Also, if you ever want to send anything to me, New Albion at protonmail.com. Venmo is at CVCPRV, and P.O. Box 35, Greenville Junction, Maine, 04442. Go buy a book for someone for Christmas. They're brilliant. You'll enjoy them. They make great bookmarks. They show that you're edgy. You want to look like you're tough. You're like, I talked to the infamous Tom Kaczynski. And you know what? I'll even send you a little something if you need. So let's see what else we got here. Let's see. That's funny that he would. Anyway, I think that's really funny, Gary, but that's fine.
Isn't he technically?
I'm not going to talk about what I'm not going to talk about N of one. I mean, he can say whatever he likes to say. It's fine. He was. Let me tell you, it's just funny. I mean, he could be such a nice boy, but what can you do? All right, let's see. What is the biggest reason to stay away from the vaccine? Okay, so what are long-term effects? We know that it seems to cause a problem with sterility. We know people are coming up with HIV results. They're saying they're false positives. Maybe they're not false positives. Maybe they're real. But here's what I think. COVID, I think, has unique capacity with this S protein to cross barriers. The vaccine is doing something to allow COVID to act differently, and it's basically because it's mRNA. It's allowing your body to create novel proteins. I mean, honestly, and let me connect this to a piece of knowledge that may be relevant. There was a recent contest where they were talking about this new supercomputer they have, which was showing new ways to fold proteins. It's nice to see that the whole purpose of AI is to hack humanity. Isn't it lovely that we build our competition and it gets right to us? But of course, that's what happens when you go ahead and put light in a machine. You make a soul trap, you get a demon. It's funny how that all works. And I think that's sort of the game at the end of this, that the vaccine is the first step in an effort to remake the human being into a synthetic being that exists in mixed reality, that's neither living nor dead, that comes from life unto unlife as a sort of thinking zombie that can be erased at will. And so that's what I think the long-term game is. But you asked what the short-term game is. I think that ultimately it's about making people unable to resist and making them compliant upon the state. And I think they're using this both psychologically to go ahead and say that you have to submit or you won't be permitted, as well as biological changes that we won't know until they happen. We do know that a lot of people get sick from even regular vaccines, and we know these are untested technologies. The basic code for this vaccine was created 2 days after they sequenced it. So the other thing that's weird, too, and we saw this in documents from France and in Canada now, as well as some leaked NHS documents, is they're already talking about COVID-21. It's funny how the diseases arrive right on schedule to meet the political agenda. Just saying, I don't trust those sort of things. Yeah. Let's see. So I live in Canada. Maine is in Canada, right? We're in the U.S. We're not in Canada. New Brunswick would be our border in Canadian province. New Brunswick to our northeast, New Hampshire to our south. Or to our west, I should say, and Quebec to the northwest and the north. So that's it. I mean, I just think it's funny he keeps emailing you. I don't know what to make of it. Gary, just, you know what? All you can do is just let him be, man. You know what? Sometimes a dog's barking up a tree, man. You got to let him go, and just go ahead and keep it apart. Terry, glad to see we got a Granite Stater in here. Always appreciate that. You know, some of you know Dana and I lived there for 2 years, so very fond memories of our time living up in Littleton, actually, way back when. But yeah, so that's what we got for tonight, and I just think it's kind of funny to how should I say, some of the things that people want to talk about. You know, people can believe whatever they want about me. The truth is, none of you really know me. You know what I share about myself, but it's an authentic presentation of who I want to be. Maybe my wife knows me a little bit. You know, you know me.
Oh, I can read your mind, man.
You know me, and I'm old Greg.
Oh my God, you know me, you see me, you love me. I'm old Greg.
I know. I'm a sucker for maps. I love maps too, man. Am I the only loner in Kansas Midwest? No, there are Midwesterners who listen to this show. There's actually another Kansas member who's here. She's not here tonight, but we actually do have listeners in Kansas, so you're not alone. He said his mother's Jewish and his dad is Catholic, but he identifies as a New Albion Aryan. Well, if he did that, I mean, what I would say is that, you know, the way to backbite people is not very much like a Viking or like someone, you know, who's looking to, you know, go to the old guild hall would do. It's more like different heritage. And it's just unfortunate. But look, I'm not trying to stir the shit. I don't want to do that. So we'll let it be. What else we got here? I'm a sucker for maps. I love maps, man. You know I love maps. I could spend if you wanted to, we could do 5 hours of Tom playing with maps, man. I have a demographic database where I know like literally the demography of every county in the northeastern quarter of this continent. And I'm not even joking. It took a long time. Dana will tell you I abandoned her for days. It was awful. But I played with the maps. Let's see. Well, you can be Germanic. You know, that's fine. I mean, look, one of the things we're going to try to do up here in the medium to long term is make Atlantic into a new identity that's stronger than that. You know, iron and coal make steel. Think of it that way. It's absolutely true. So are Israel and China battling for who wants to be behind the curtain, or are their interests aligned? I think their interests are aligned, to be honest with you. I think China is selling out the United States. What more can they get from us? We gave them everything that they could want, and that's kind of where we're at. I don't know, maybe, you know, especially if we're not willing to go fight a war with Iran, you know, which I think we should avoid. So, you know, I've thought that for a very long time, and I've been very clear about that. I am not someone who favors fighting for our elites against other elites. I favor fighting for our people against our elites. And I hate to say it, but the next war that has real meaning for us will have to happen on our own soil. And that's just the way it is. And, you know, we'll see if it happens that way. So let's say a quick prayer here. And no, I no more brothers wars. We're not going to have that. I'm not fighting any Europeans. I'm not fighting anyone unless they're trying to literally come and kill me. I mean, if you invade Maine, I'll fight you, but that's about it. Other than that, you know, I fight for the Atlantic, and I'm not fighting. Say what you want. I'm not fighting for the United States of America, because the United States of America doesn't fight for us. And that's the reality of it. And it's been that way for a very long time, since at least World War II. And maybe before then. We could get into an argument. Maybe we will. But Heavenly Father, I just pray that in these times of uncertainty, that you provide the guiding light of wisdom that leads us to make good choices, to remember who our friends and enemies are, to identify that which is evil, and that the message of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ, provides that constant moral compass, and that more people find their way to salvation in these last hours before strange days come, because we don't know when the end is going to be here, but we don't want it to be the last end, and that hopefully people find their way to salvation through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So I pray the blood of Jesus over all your houses so that you can be safe, and that hopefully something in my message, if you listen to all the other stuff, maybe you should consider listening to that. I put a lot of energy into it too, and go read In God We Must, and maybe give you a different idea. You know, the Lord says in the book of Mark that it's not what comes into you that defiles you, it's what comes out of you. So think, as you want to change your future, how you can be the active piece of it. And I think something really good can come out of that. I think that's a good and powerful message to close on. So here, that says, you've never fired a gun, or that you couldn't to save your life. That's not actually true. I've actually killed animals with guns. That's happened before. So that is in fact false. But, huh? Well, yeah, I'll tell you the truth. And this is be honest by God's truth. I don't get into gun culture because I'm on like 30 watch lists. Okay, I'll just tell you. the whole pen is mightier than the sword thing. And I don't intend to be on the other 30 that end up getting you locked in jail. And that's a choice and a sacrifice I make. And people might say it's foolish and people might say it's wise. You know, I have the ability to defend myself as need be. But my goal here is not to go into these arguments because, honestly, I'm trying to change the way people think. The weapon that's more powerful than a boomstick is your mind. And I can convince, if I really wanted to, I could have 10 people here shooting for me in 5 seconds. It's not about that. I want you thinking differently. And I want you to realize there's a lot more weapons out there than going ahead and just talking about mindless violence. The idea that you're going to fight for causes that aren't in your interest just to make a mindless statement, well, we know what culture endorses that. And it ain't New Albion. So you guys all have a very, very good evening. You can buy in Where God We Must. From Amazon's the easiest place. If you really want to get a copy, not through them, reach out to me at newalbion@protonmail.com. I'll get one out. I have some more copies coming in, just a few. I will be able to send out in December. Those would cost, let's see, it probably cost, I guess, pay for the shipping. Domestically, it would cost $25 for an autographed copy. So that includes the shipping cost for me so that I'm not losing money on it. But I can do that if you want to have one, and I would, of course, I'm happy to dedicate if that's what you want. Or if you want a bigger number, I can do something different. So that's it here and what we have. So it's been an hour, so I made it that. And thank you, by the way, son. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you, Casey, everyone who's here, Terry, Gary, everyone who's been here this evening. And please keep Dana and I in your prayers. We will be praying for all your families. God bless each and every one of you. And, keep working on it. I'm going to do something. If you ever see me in the field, and you might one day, come to the sound of the guns. We'll need you here. I'll be looking for you guys like Gandalf at the last light. So that'll work out good. God bless. Oh, yeah. Well, up here is probably the last light, but we'll do what we can. All right. You guys have a good night.